All right, it is now 7:30. I'd like to call to order the Town of Dartmouth Board of Public Works. My name is Robert Almy. I'm the chair. I'd like to take a roll call of our members. Mr. Lavelle,
Here.
Mr. Almy is here. We have a quorum. Mr. Alves is not here today, so we'll have two board members. We have a rather lengthy agenda, and
Rob,
yeah.
can you announce that this is being recorded?
Oh, yes. This meeting is being recorded. There are two places where that is indicated. One is when you sign on Zoom, and one is by the statement of the chair right now. The recording is available through the Town of Dartmouth. Mr. LaBelle, with your indulgence, when we get through the first two administrative items, I'd like to do some agenda modification here, just move some items around, because we have a number of people who are involved in items that would normally come much further down the agenda. So
That's fine with me.
So let's take the first two administrative items. Approve and accept warrants. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve and accept the warrants for the bills payable period ending April 8th and 16th of 2024.
Mr. LaBelle moves approve and acceptance, and the chair seconds. All in favor, Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Second item, approve and accept payrolls.
I'll make a motion to approve and accept the payrolls for the week ending April 13 and 20 of 2024.
I will second. So the item has been moved by Mr. LaBelle and seconded by the chair, Mr. Almy. All in favor, Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Item is accepted. Mr. LaBelle, you were not here for the meeting on March 28th. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I apologize for that, Mr.
Then
Chairman.
we will defer the consideration of minutes to our next meeting. Next item is old business. Tim, with your concurrence, I'd like to move down to new business item B, which is Dartmouth Tree Committee. Mr. LaBelle, are you okay with that?
Rob, before we do that, I just wanted to let you know that we do have Weston Sampson and Matt Abrahams back again to present on the rate study for the rate review, as well as Mr. Tim DeSilva, for his utility layer renewal is actually here at the meeting. If anybody has any questions for his renewal, as that's on the new business A.
All right. How long a presentation do you think the utility rates would be?
I asked it to be pretty quick because we had a lengthy meeting, so I think we can get through it pretty quick. How long do you think, Ben? Ben Rollins is on from Weston Sampson.
Good morning, everyone. I think, is Matt Abrams on yet? I don't see him quite. Oh, there he is. Hey, Matt.
I'm here, Ben. Good morning.
I think, so what we've done, guys, is we've updated our previous PowerPoint, and I think we could speed through it in 5-10 minutes. I don't think it has to be too lengthy.
All right, let's do that, and let's do Mr. DeSilva, and then move into the tree committee, because I think that's going to be a fairly lengthy discussion. Mr. Rollins, would you like to lead this discussion? I recall that we had asked for a little bit more detail from our last meeting.
Yes, you have, Rob. I'm trying to share my screen right now, but it says the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have to allow it because we were actually Zoom bombed at one point.
Oh, wow.
A couple months ago. So
okay.
So
Community media, could you allow Mr. Rollins to share his screen, please? All right, I don't see any, there they are.
Oh, I got it. Okay, guys, let me know when I'm sharing my screen, please.
I can see it.
I can see it.
Okay, great. So yes, thank you, Rob. Thanks, Tim. This is an update to our previous month's meeting here. So we're talking about water and sewer rates. So we're looking at the water and sewer rates, and we're trying to kind of determine which capital projects to move forward with. So last presentation we talked through why we're doing this rate study in the first place. It's important that the town maintains a robust capital plan for both water and sewer, and we want to maintain the goal of retained earnings at a target of 15%, just to further improve the city's water and sewer systems. We spoke through average bills for Dartmouth as they compared to their brother and sister communities in the area last meeting. I'll make this quick. As you can see on the left-hand side, let's see, pointer laser. As you can see on the left-hand side here, Dartmouth is more toward the left on the lower water bill, and then on the right chart over here, the sewer bill, Dartmouth is second from the left as well. So other similar communities are charging more for their water and sewer bills. And Matt, I think this jumps to you, but I did just want to outline that we've kind of honed down the options here for rate increases based on our last discussion. We've gone through the capital improvements projects, selected what the important ones are, and then we came up with two new options instead of our last meeting, which had 4 options, which was no capital work, limited capital work, more capital work, and then all capital work. And from last meeting, we have fine-tuned it to basically just no capital work and then high priority capital work, and we'll go through those in later slides.
Yes, good morning. Matt Abrahams here from the Abrahams Group. I'm here to talk to you about water and sewer rates. So as Ben mentioned, this is an updated presentation from the last time we did this. We've fine-tuned the options as he mentioned, but some of these slides will look familiar for the people who were on that last meeting. So we're talking about water right now with this slide. There's recent rate action at the top. It shows you what happened in the recent fiscal years for rates. As everyone's aware, the town pays New Bedford for some of its water. That's currently budgeted at $1.4 million for the next fiscal year of FY25, which is the same amount that it was budgeted for FY24, even though New Bedford's rates went up 8.5%. So we wanted to make that clear that is that's the case. For debt, we just did we put some quick numbers together. So FY24, $846,000. This is debt that's currently on the books, and just over $1 million in FY25. It'll slowly decrease from there. And of course, when we're looking at capital, we're considering that additional debt may be added to that. So related to the capital plan, nothing was funded for FY24. Recently, there was some funding that was authorized, $250,000 out of retained earnings for the upcoming fiscal year of FY25. There is the possibility that additional is authorized, but that is what has been authorized up to this point. And as Ben mentioned, we have focused on what the town considers to be high priority items in the capital plan. And that's what the next area of the slide shows you, that if those were to be funded, we're looking at $1.33 million in additional retained earnings needed to do that, as well as $13.6 million in additional borrowings, which translates to about $1.2 million of additional debt once everything is borrowed. Next slide. The slide on the graph on the left shows you recent results, but 24 is projected. The graph on the right shows you recent retained earnings certifications, which is the blue line. The red line is the target of 15% that was mentioned by Ben recently. And you can see that retained earnings generally has fallen off recently, and we are projecting that it will continue to do so without rate action. Next slide, please. Here is another similar slide looking forward. This is the do nothing, meaning that there would be no changes to revenues, which is unlikely, but we do like to show that just so you can see how far retained earnings as currently exists can take the water fund. And we have it not even being able to get through FY25 at this point. So there is a need for rate action at this point, simply just to allow the fund to continue operating. Next slide, please. So here's option one, which Ben mentioned was no capital work. So what we mean by that is, other than the recent authorizations, including the 250 for FY25, we are assuming no other capital. So all the other high priority items that were identified in the capital plan, nothing of that would be funded. And what we're seeing is that we think rates would have to be increased 4.5% annually. That's a per year amount for the next 5 years, just to keep the operating portion of the water fund moving forward as intended, and also to target the 15% retained earnings amount, which on this graph is that orange line. So on the graph here on the right, the blue is what's projected for retained earnings, and the orange is the target. So again, this is with the 4.5% annually. We believe that that would be needed just to keep the operating piece moving forward and no additional capital. Here is the same slide, but for the high priority capital that was identified, and I mentioned these numbers earlier. It's additional $1.33 million in retained earnings and additional borrowing of $13.6 million over the next few years in order to essentially maintain the same financial picture with those additional expenses. Now the annual increase is 7.5%. So there's a 3% annual increase bump up in order to fund what the town considers to be high priority capital work for water. And here is a quick comparison of average water bills based on those two options that were presented. Option one is the no capital. Option two is the high priority capital. What we've highlighted for you here is what the current bill is for the average residential family and what we projected that it would be based on those rate plans. So for option one, over the 5-year period, 4.5% annually, that's a difference of, quick math, about $88 per bill over the 5-year period. So that's a 5-year bump up of $88 per bill. And then for option two, it looks to be about $120 per bill over that 5-year period. But if we look at just the 1-year look, meaning for FY25, because that's presumably what rates will be set for. For option one, it's about a $22 increase per bill. And for option two, no, that's bad math, $12 increase per bill. And option two is about $21 per bill. So those are the water slides. We're going to run through the same slides for sewer. I just want to pause just for a moment in case there are questions. Hearing none. Let's quickly go through the same slides for sewer. So these are the same slides, same scenarios. For sewer, the capital plan is not as robust. So you'll see a little bit of a different scenario for that reason. So down at the bottom, if we're looking at what the high priority items are, if they were to be fully funded, you're looking at an additional $1.24 million in retained earnings. And based on what the plan is, those actually would hit in the very near future. And we'll show what that means on the graph momentarily. Additional borrowing is $2.9 million, and that works out to be about $260,000 annually once everything is borrowed. And we just want to quickly mention that the capital plan does not include upgrades that are required for the treatment plant. So these numbers do not include that. And here's the same slides. It's similar to water. Retained earnings has fallen off a little bit the last few years, and we currently are projecting it to stay below that line. Here's the do nothing. So similar scenario, what would happen if you don't raise revenues? Well, the fund can get through FY25, but barely. That's what this is telling us, and that there is a need for action. And here's the no capital work slide. So it's the same scenario that we've included what's been funded for FY25, and that was $300,000 out of retained earnings. If nothing else were to be funded, just to continue operations as is and not do additional capital work, 3.5% annually. and the high priority, we have a little bit of a different rate plan here. And the reason why is because of what I mentioned with the retained earnings. So that $1.24 million in retained earnings that would be the funding source, or I guess would be the planned funding source for the high priority capital work. That would happen in the next 2 years. So that would basically deplete your retained earnings if you were to fund those capital items out of retained earnings. And that's why there's a need for a higher increase in the short term. You can see that 7.5% in FY25 before we can stabilize a little bit. I just want everyone to be aware that based on this scenario, retained earnings do fall off pretty significantly, as you can see there, and are near zero. So if the town were to fund these capital items out of retained earnings, I'd say this is the minimum plan that you could look at in order to make that happen. So 7.5% in year one, and then 4% after that, and then the same slide here over 5 years for the 3.5% annually. You're looking at math. It's about $49 over the 5-year period, and just in the next year for FY25, that's a $9 increase per bill, and for the 4% scenario, which actually does include a 7.5% in year one, you're looking at that's
67. They're over to the left over there.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I didn't notice that.
Sorry, I should have pointed that out.
67, yeah, $67 over the 5-year period, and then about $19 just year one. That's a per bill amount.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Matt. So I think next steps here, guys, are we have 2 more Board of Public Works meetings, May and June, monthly meetings, and we're hoping to fine tune these options and really kind of get your feedback and work with you on rate increases and what you guys want to do here. June 4th is the day for capital projects to be approved, and then July 1 is when the new rates go into effect. So we are all ears on your feedback. I just feel that it's important to note that although the do nothing, the baseline, those did look good with some rate increase, the smaller rate increases, and we were able to kind of loop back to the goal of 15% retained earnings. That serves against your infrastructure and your water and sewer departments, as they have no option to improve the infrastructure that needs improving. So if I could give my own recommendation, it would be to kind of gear towards the high priority capital improvements plan and rate increases if possible. So with that, I think we're at around 10 or 11 minutes or so. I'll stop and open it up to questions.
Ron, do you have any questions?
Well, I think we all understood that these things were gonna come around, but I guess the one issue I have, has anyone given on the wastewater side the need for capital improvements relative to a whole brand new treatment process?
Yeah, Tim, that's my comment too. I would like to see a robust estimate of evaluation and engineering leading up to some level of assumed rebuild or replacement of the sewage treatment plant within 5 years, where the 4th year or the 5th year would be where construction starts. We obviously have a pressing need for that, but I'd like to fold that into this evaluation, since this is a 5-year evaluation, which is normally adequate. And because we can see that we've got such a pressing problem with the existing wastewater treatment plant, I think we ought to be able to see at least the leading edge of that in this estimate. All right. Ron, do you have anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Rollins, did anyone talk to you about the need for the upgrade for the treatment plant?
I think you froze.
We are heavily involved in the water portion of the town's upgrades. Can you guys hear me? I just got to notice that my internet. Okay.
You froze.
So we're heavily involved. Thanks, Tim. We're heavily involved in the water portion. I was made aware of this in the early discussions. I believe the kickoff meeting. Yes.
Okay, I mean, my concern is, this looks like it's something that, undoubtedly is going to happen. The plant is beyond its design capabilities. It's 35 years old. It's past its useful design capability. I mean, would you look at it in respect to what would if we went to the state revolving fund and borrowed money at 2%, if that program, I mean, I've used that program. I'm assuming it's still viable. What would be the rate increases to support? I think on the wastewater side, you can do a 30-year borrowing. So that debt service.
That's a great question, Ron, and I think that's something worth absolutely looking at.
Yeah.
In this evaluation. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're currently working on an interim upgrade to give the plant some capacity in life. That's what the design is funded. We're in contract. It's at 38% currently design for that interim upgrade. And
Is that the aeration system
that is, yes.
with CDM? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and the construction is also partially funded through our capital article as well. And then we are also in this year's capital, you'll see that one of the items that's being funded is a portion of the evaluation leading to design for the upgrade of the entire facility. So we're working with a consultant to move forward with a scope and fund that evaluation to move forward the design upgrades of the entire facility. We don't currently have an estimate for that. We have some, we have really rough estimates based on, design flow, dollar per design flow. So we can put something like that together with a 30-year borrowing estimate for an option in one of these, I guess, rate increase options.
Yeah, I think you need to, Tim, and I think you can assume that there'll be a fair amount of evaluation of alternatives and environmental analysis and permitting and a pretty typical staged engineering development. And it needs to be in there, and I think the only art really is whether this is a 3-year process or a 4-year process, but I can't emphasize too much Ron's comment about the need to do something about this sewage treatment plant, something significant. And it needs to show up in both our short-term and our long-term capital planning. All right, so let's see if we can add a little bit of, if you will, detail to this and have this thing show up. We need to do that. Ron, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, the town needs to plan for this.
Right.
Elected leadership needs to be made aware that, this is something that is gonna have to happen.
Right.
And we're gonna need to figure out what it's gonna cost and how we're gonna pay for it.
Right. And let's be clear here. Without our input, the town leadership doesn't have anything to work with. So it's on us to first of all, move the discussion forward, and second of all, to give them the best sense at any given time of what we think it's going to take, recognizing that will evolve with time as we go through this business. But
Absolutely.
we need to be at every point being able to show them where the evaluation and upgrade of the sewage treatment system, that is both collection and the plant itself, shows up in our 5-year plan and longer planning. We've been talking about this for a year. Now it needs to show up in our, in anything we give the select board. All right, anything else? All right. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate your time. Matthew, good report, and we'll stay with this and keep working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Right.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
I'd like now to move, if I could, to new business A, approval of De Silva Landscapes application. Tim?
1 second, sorry. Okay, Tim De Silva is here, from De Silva Landscape. De Silva Landscape was licensed last year as a utility layer in town. Due to the fact that he only had 2 referrals from other municipalities, the board asked that his renewal, upon renewal, come back before the board, with with a referral from our department and an update on his work in town. Mr. De Silva performed work on at 274 Bakerville Road, which is sewer and water installation. From our engineering division, stated that they were in substantial compliance with the approved plans and the Town of Dartmouth DPW construction specifications for the installation of the water and sewer service. The lines are not active. Currently, it's a new house. There was no electric power to the new dwelling at the time of the inspection for the environmental 1 pump to be tested. So that will be tested as soon as they get electric installed in the house.
And Tim, what's your recommendation?
We do recommend to give Mr. De Silva a full license. He has complied with all our specifications and on the one job that he has completed.
All right, Mr. De Silva, do you have any comments, or you want to add anything?
No, I mean, we'd be thrilled to be on the list and, comply by you guys' standards and, do everything the way it's supposed to be done. So look forward to doing work in the town.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Could I just ask one question?
Sure.
I don't know if I've got something old or current, but it says his policy terminates in 2 days. And I only have 2 letters of recommendation. Am I missing something, or?
Yeah, the 2 letters of recommendation is why he had to come back before the board.
Okay,
He only had the 2, so based on the one, we basically gave him a license for the rest of that year. And upon renewal, the board
Okay, I
asked
remember
that he
that.
come back. Yeah, so
I
he
remember
did
that.
do work and our department did the inspections and basically he did the work per specifications and
okay.
he was
All
in
right.
substantial compliance. Based on his policy, check that.
If there's any lapse in coverage, I'm sure it already renewed. We can send that right over if anything's missing. So,
It just says expires 4/26/24.
Yes,
which policy is that?
general liability.
General liability.
Yeah, I could have it fresh sent over to the office today, but I mean, we got no work, scheduled at this moment. Just looking to be on the list, for the future.
I'm fine with that, Tim, if you are.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And-
I'll
and-
make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to award the renewal application for Timothy De Silva.
Mr. LaBelle moves approval, Chairman seconds. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle votes aye, Chairman votes aye. Motion is approved. Thank you for your patience, Mr. De Silva. It took us a while to get to you, but all
No problem. No problem. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
got it
Thank
done.
you, Tim. Thank you. See ya.
right.
And I'll say that our clerical staff will make sure before he is licensed, moving forward, that all his policies are up to date.
All right. All right, so let's hold off on the budget CIP review
Okay,
and let's move through new business. Next item is new business B, which is the Dartmouth Tree Committee. We've gotten two documents from them. One, a text that was circulated as part of the agenda materials, and then a late submittal yesterday afternoon, which I have before me. Mr. LaBelle, did you get a copy of their late submittal, which is
I
a,
reviewed the issued statement, but I saw that in the evening, and be honest with you, Mr. Chairman, I didn't go through it.
all right, so that's a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm showing 11 slides. All right, we have, Tim, do you want to introduce this and the members of the tree committee, please?
yes, Andrea Langhauser is here from the Dartmouth Tree Committee to present on the request for a bylaw, a town bylaw, or a tree bylaw, and the need for the bylaw.
Right, and I see Ms.
Andrea,
Parson.
Yeah,
Ms.
right.
Parson, you're the chair, is that correct?
That's
Of the
correct.
committee? All right, do we have any other chair members or any other committee members here?
Yes, so if I could introduce the two other Dartmouth Tree Committee bylaw subcommittee members. Susan McLaren is also a tree committee member herself, and she's a master gardener. And Dr. Vic Malley is a member of our tree committee. The three of us have been working together to draft a bylaw.
Okay, and how many, you're a committee appointed by the select board to advise them on this particular issue, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how many members are on the appointed board?
There are 5. I'm sorry, my video is not behaving. Can you see me? I can't
Yes.
see you.
Yes, I can. All right, so we have an issue here where you have a 5-member board and you have 4 of your members, so
No,
you
two-
have.
Two members.
Who-
Vic and I are on the subcommittee, but we're not appointed to
By the
the tree
board.
committee.
All right, okay, so we do not, I want to be clear, we do not have a quorum issue. All right. So how would you like to proceed?
I was going to give a brief lead in to what Andrea is going to talk about the bylaw, and just explain our background a little bit. It was,
Can I share my screen, Anne?
yeah, I can't, all I'm seeing is Zoom. I'm not seeing faces.
Right, I've got a few slides for you, so, on the presentation, so I will, disabled.
Something's wrong on my end. Let me just give a brief intro.
Kim, do you have the presentation? Can you, pull it up? Because I'm disabled.
Yeah,
No.
actually, Dartmouth Community Media can give you
There it is.
permission. Yeah, there you go.
I can't see any. Oh, there we are.
right.
Okay. So the idea for a tree committee began 3 years ago when a small lot in South Dartmouth was all but clear cut of about 50 magnificent trees, wide variety of old trees, excellent habitat for wildlife. That lot is now one big house, hardly any trees left, and the same happened directly across the street. This motivated about 10 of us, again, 3 years ago, to organize. And we organized more and more, the more trees we saw coming down around us. Eventually, we were officially appointed as town committee in November 22. And since then, we've observed many street crimes, just adding to weight of our mission. Our mission basically states that Our broad mission is to promote the protection, planting, and care of trees and forests, as well as to raise awareness of the many benefits that trees have for our community. And a bylaw really would complement that mission. The problem the bylaw would address is a notable decline in the numbers and health of street trees, as well as the town's overall decline of street tree canopy. And this decline is happening for many reasons, including development, climate change, the aging of many trees without replanting, a lack of understanding and reverence in respect to trees, and also what we think of as a Wild West attitude that allows people to eliminate trees without repercussions. That's just a lead into what Andrea is going to talk about with the bylaw. Thank you.
Any general questions for the tree committee chair?
No. I have
Okay,
none.
so as Ann said, the idea of having a tree bylaw was to complement the public awareness work and the tree planting that's being done by the committee itself. They actually have they've actually are on their second year of Arbor Day celebration, where Eversource has been helping them plant trees on school properties. They're doing a town hall tree replanting. And one of the things that the bylaw can help with is that while local zoning addresses tree planting and management along subdivision roads and on commercial lots, there's a lot of existing residential lots that are being developed that don't have any kind of site review. And so would like to get to this level of development that's below zoning, and yet still affects our existing trees. So the importance of what we'd like to do with the bylaw is to expand upon the authority you already have with Mass General Law, Chapter 87. And we're here with the Board of Public Works because you guys are. Tim's our tree warden. He wears many, many hats, as you can see on today's agenda, but he's also our tree warden. And you guys are running public hearings for scenic roads. So we'd like to expand upon those efforts. And also a kind of a secondary issue is we'd like to establish a dedicated fund for the planting and management of trees to give your board and Tim a little more leeway on getting new trees in the ground.
Andrea, may I jump in for 1 second, please?
Sure, Tim.
So we don't hold hearings at the DPW for scenic roads. Those are held at the planning board level.
Right.
We hold hearings for public shade trees that are not on scenic roads.
Right. And we are aware that the Scenic Road Act has been adapted in the planning board, and I understand, Tim, you give recommendations on those hearings. It's the public shade trees that I was speaking of.
Yeah.
And when we speak of alternatives, one alternative to this bylaw is expanding the scenic roads bylaw. We wanted to get the town's level of interest first on doing a full town-wide expansion of public shade trees. So under the state act, public shade trees are defined as all trees within the public way. Obviously, that's not the trees in the pavement, because those would be a problem. But it's the trees along the right of way adjacent to the pavement. And there's also a 20-foot zone on private property adjacent to the street where the town and utilities can plant trees. And then once the town is involved with planting those trees, they have the same protections as a public tree. So Tim's been out around town to take a look at trees that are requested to be removed, or if there's a hazard or a nuisance, he can cut down public shade trees without a hearing. But if, assuming it's an otherwise healthy tree, the applicant is supposed to submit a shade tree permit to the DPW where you have had a few hearings. I think the tree committee is hoping that we expand on people's understanding that public shade tree hearing is required. Utilities are exempt from most of the public notice and hearing by having an annual vegetation management plan, so they can do their cutting and trimming across the town. And I think the Dartmouth Tree Committee has been looking at those plans and giving some recommendations. There is a fine for removing trees without a permit in the state law. It's $5 per tree.
500.
500.
500. It seems low to me. It also seems early in the morning. So what are the things we're trying to do? We'd like to expand the definition of the public shade tree. In the state law, all trees within the public way or bordering the public way are considered public trees. We'd like to clarify that that includes any part of the trunk that's within the public way. We'd also like to expand it to say that if a tree that has at least a 6-inch diameter breast height has a tree canopy that extends onto the road pavement, we'd like to have those be reviewed as well. Those tend to be our more mature trees that are located along the roadways, and they do serve a great public value of shading the road, of absorbing the runoff from our rains, of all the good things trees do. Plus, along with being pretty aesthetic, and it takes a long time to build for a new tree to get mature. So would like to expand your review to be cognizant of the larger trees that are adjacent to the roads that might be on private lands, but hang over the public way. I can take questions on each of these concepts, or we could wait to the end. What would you like, Rob?
I'm acquiring questions, and Ron, you can break in anytime.
Yeah, I will if I choose to.
All right.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead,
Thank you.
Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. I do have one question. This 20-foot setback.
Yep, 20-foot setback.
If what you're saying is if some portion of the tree overreaches into the public way,
Mhm.
that are you suggesting that the town is responsible for that tree?
Not that the town is responsible, but that it's a trigger for the homeowner to seek the permission and guidance of the tree warden in any work they want to do on that tree. So if it's a hazard, or if it's a nuisance, if it's been pest infested, then Tim would allow activities the same way he would with a public shade tree, but that if they just want to get rid of it because what we would suggest is that they make the request to the Board of Public Works, and you consider that and perhaps ask for mitigation in the form of a replacement tree or or payment for paying for other trees.
My only concern with that is, does the town have the authority to do that?
Well, that's what the town bylaws for.
Right, but would the
there's-
bylaw be legal?
Yes, so if it passes town meeting, it also has to go through the Attorney General.
Right.
Chapter 87 allows you, the Mass General Law, Chapter 87 allows the town to develop rules and regulations that are complementary to 87.
Mhm.
And we've looked at almost 50 approved bylaws, and we're using all the language that we're coming up with have been approved by Attorney General in some other way. So we're trying to do this in a careful and judicial way, so that
Yep.
if the town chooses to put this on the warrant, pass it at town meeting, it should have a good chance getting through the AG's office.
Yeah, no, I'm not fighting you. I'm just trying to make that issue clear. I mean, you know, I've said this before. I have a tree in my yard that I've been asked to take down now for 5 years. And I'm still reluctant to do it. But,
Oh, thank you, Ron.
but you know, the town, you know, if we're gonna create bylaws, you know, subject to chapter 87, you know, some homeowners are gonna be you know, a little concerned about people telling them what to do with their own properties.
Yeah, we'll have to deal with that we'll have to deal with that in a you know, through the public comment process,
Yeah.
hopefully well
Okay.
before we get to town meeting.
Okay.
And that's, Ron, that's the kind of stuff that we're looking to get a feel for here, because you've actually had people come forward. I don't think Tim's got the time or the inclination. You can speak to that, Tim, but I don't think he has the time or the inclination to run around telling people to cut down trees. But if people come to him, then, or if we're asking that people should come to him if they have the desire.
Mhm.
And if so, Tim, we're asking Tim to expand his public interest in that tree and you know, consider the effects of that tree has for the full community.
Yep. Understood.
Often it's trimming a tree can often take care of the homeowner's concerns and still leave a mature tree in place.
Mhm.
Okay, so I appreciate what you're saying. That is really legitimate. The drip line is a new concept that has been approved in other town meetings. If we don't get anything else, I'd like to get that, because I think there's a real direct correlation to public community benefit when the tree is overhanging the road. Public road, not a private road.
Yep.
So thank you. So we just briefly spoke of the fact that trees right now, if the Public Works Board, Tim, decides that a tree is healthy but wants to be taken down, gets a permit to do it, there's no mitigation. And this is true of the Scenic Roads Act in the way Dartmouth represents it as well. And so another key concept for us is that we would like to see that if someone chooses to take a mature tree down or along our public ways, we would like to have them fund or plant a replacement tree. We'd like that planting to be comparable to the size of the tree lost. Using a 3-inch tree as a replacement tree, by example, you know, a 3-inch caliber tree is a solid tree that has a good chance of being successful once planted. If a 12-inch tree wants to be 12-inch diameter breast height tree wants to be taken down, we would suggest that maybe they should replant upwards of 4 3-inch trees to replace the 12-inch diameter. Or if 4 trees don't fit in the lot or adjacent to the lot, as Tim decides, that a comparable cost to the replacement or the town purchasing a 3-inch tree be paid into a mitigation fund for Tim to do planting elsewhere. But that's a 1-for-1 replacement that we would recommend. But we also have a list of recommended tree species that's on the Dartmouth Tree Committee website. And we would encourage people to use those trees. That is a list of both large canopy public shade trees, which are beautiful along our town roads, but it's also shorter trees that grow well under overhead wires, and is a wide variety. So if people were to plant from the recommended list, we would say that the tree warden would have the ability to reduce that ratio. So perhaps a 12-inch tree could get replaced, by 1 or 2, depending on what the ratio is. But they're high caliber. They're trees that are likely to do very well here in Dartmouth. They're likely to present well on our trees. And we recognize that most town projects, publicly funded projects, either have a requirement for trees in the grant funding, or if they don't, that there's not a lot of extra money involved in the public projects. So we do think there should be some discretion when publicly funded projects on the number of trees that are planted, and we leave that discretion to the tree warden. That it's kind of when it's a private tree being taken down, you shall replace the tree. And when it's publicly funded projects, it sure would be a good idea if you did, please. Would be the way we would write it. But I'm a big fan of the town acting by example. So, putting in trees is always a good thing along the road. Mitigation's a big deal. It's not unheard of. It's used in many, many, many bylaws. It's we would consider one of the primary reasons for expanding the role of 87. And yes, we would speak to the planning board about incorporating this into their tree work as well. Tree fund, this seems straightforward. Would like to have a dedicated fund solely for the care and management of trees. Ann Parson and the tree committee have been doing very well in raising private funds to be used for public projects. And so there is a dedicated gift fund at the moment, but we would like a dedicated tree fund to be available, because if you should have any ne'er-do-wells that you have to fine, that those fines go directly into the care and control of trees. Because Lord knows there's a lot of trees in town, and Tim's got a lot of work around town, so would like to improve his tree budget. Anne has gone before the select board and said, shouldn't we, the town, fund money there too? And God bless her.
Can I slip one thing in, Andrea? And that is, I am going to go in front of the town meeting next fall to request, and I'll be honest, $30,000 from the town budget for purchasing trees for perhaps adopt a tree program, or our bigger plan of just planting trees in bare areas, street trees. So I just want a heads up on that. Thank you, Andrea.
Tree fund obviously would be under the care and control of the select board, but we would like to get feedback on who authorizes expenditures and the process. And I respectfully would recommend that the tree warden be given the ability to either submit an annual plan of how he's going to use the funds, or that he be allowed to expend funds from there for small dollar projects, so that the money can move more quickly in and out of the fund. That's a level of detail that I'd seek any input on. The tree bylaw will not have any requirement that the town fund, that the town budget put money into this. It's only going to say that any violations of the tree bylaw, any funds collected through violations or through mitigation, go into the care and control of trees, so that there's a direct connection to harm and benefit. So that speaks to local fines. Under the current state law, $500 per tree for removal without a permit. That works, but trees cost about $500 to replace, just to buy. And you know, so it doesn't really cover the cost of replacing the tree, even with a single tree, when you take into account the labor involved. So we'd like that any violation of a local bylaw, each affected tree is a separate violation. If he takes down 6 trees, that's 6 violations. And that once the person has been noticed of the violation, each day is of non-payment of the fee is a separate violation. This is standard language used in non-criminal disposition authority, which the state has authority to do and the town has authority to do. And so we think that any fines should be comparable to fines that the other boards are using. I know, for instance, the harbor master uses the non-criminal disposition authority with some regularity. Wetlands can use it, others can use it. And it's just a ticket, but it's a ticket that can be appealed, and it's a ticket that can carry the weight of economic loss if they don't deal with it fast. My personal professional opinion is that the dollar value of the fine should remain low, because the purpose of a fine is to bring a person into compliance, and what you really want them to do is replace the trees and replace them with the mitigation that we speak to. And we know that mitigation, if you take down a large tree, is going to be expensive. We don't want the fines, we want the trees to be replaced. And that's the way that the subcommittee would like the bylaw to, that would be the intent of the bylaw, is get their attention, but bring them into compliance quickly. So Rob, this is something that people could be pissing and moaning about, but we'll see. Well, Anne's got a lot of ability to get people to do things in a positive way. She's got good negotiation skills. So here we go. Protecting existing trees. Ron, with your tree, being close to the public way and extending over onto it, right now, we would like to clarify that the state law does say that if any part of the tree is within the public way, it is a public shade tree. We, as we said, would like to expand that to include the overhang of the tree. And then with your suggestions, we'd like to extend that to existing trees that we did not plant, that are within the 20-foot setback area on the front of the property. And because those trees are already larger than the 3 inches tree that we could plant. And we're not taking management authority of them. We're taking oversight authority of them. That those trees have a value. So if they die, they die. But if they want to be taken down for if a perfectly healthy tree wants to be taken down, we're asking that the town have some oversight and then replacement. We could also, if you're so inclined, speak to trees along side and rear property lines, maybe for a setback distance that is maybe 10 feet or consistent with local zoning when 10 feet is too wide. This, professionally speaking, is there's a little less public interest in those trees, but there's a lot of neighborhood interest in those trees. So bylaws, other towns have extended protected tree rights along the side and rear property lines. And we see those as two different tiers. The area along the street is a direct public interest. You can claim an immediate public benefit to those. But we could, if the town so chooses, we could go into the side and rear properties lines. There's going to be public comment once we this is the beginning of the feedback, although Tim has heard these things before. Yeah, but we're looking for feedback on these issues. And then what's the protection? So right now, there's no requirement to protect existing trees during construction. And as I spoke of, the planning board has review at commercial site plan and subdivisions. And in theory, they can design their roads around existing mature trees. But what we're looking to do is both encourage the planning board and also to address building permits that are for larger construction. And when a building permit comes in, allow the tree warden to have review of those applications. And the type of large construction we'd recommend would be building on a vacant lot that didn't trigger site plan review because it's treed. It's very, very few of these are old agricultural fields. We'd also like to consider the raising or reconstructing of an existing house because some developers are really good about leaving mature trees in place and working around them, and others like to have a clear palette to design from. And then the substantial alteration is of a construction because the state building code says that if you do more than a 50% increase in your footprint, then you have to meet the other codes. So we'd like to be incorporated into that. And what we're asking is that when these building permit applications come in, that there's a trigger for the tree warden to comment on them. And we'd ask the applicant to provide an inventory of the existing trees that exist and to provide measures to protect those trees in the construction zone. And there are existing examples of best management practices to protect trees during construction. I know Tim has used them on street repairs. And here we go. And we would love that the reason he's reviewing that and the reason he's looking at the existing trees on the lot is possible replanting of trees lost. And if not replanting, contribution into a tree fund. And we would provide guidance in the bylaw as to, what level of contribution that would be. Again, different towns have used different values. I'm sure it's relative to the cost of a 3-inch tree and the cost of replanting it. So we're asking for some changes to protect our existing trees. And we know that this is work that goes directly to the tree warden, who is also our DPW superintendent. And we know he's dealing with water and sewer, roads and snow plowing, everything else. We're not asking for him to do a whole lot more, but we are asking for more protections of the trees along our town roads. So We wanted to come to you with the concepts before we started to write them down, because things tend to get firm when you put them into sentences. And so we wanted to get your sense of whether or not we're on the right track, whether and what things would be pretty, you would support very easily, and what things would need to have more persuasion to get through. We know town meeting, we're shooting for town meeting in October, and we would be submitting a warrant article in beginning of August. So we want to come to you early with some ideas. And personally, I think you've got a pretty good sense of the town and what's possible and what's not possible, and would like your feedback.
Can I say one thing, Robert, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Andrea, that was a great presentation. I just want to point out, and we will be doing this in the future, that a great many towns around us are putting together bylaws. It's really important. I think one of the most impressive towns right now is New Bedford. What they're doing to protect and plant trees is just awesome. This goes a little bit afield, but I might mention next time you drive down their streets, you notice that all the power lines have been put underground, giving the street trees more room to grow in. It's a distant concept for us, but when you drive down Dartmouth Street, you see mostly poles, not trees, even though Tim's doing a great job planting smaller trees. This all goes towards protecting trees, making trees stand out and really beautify a community. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
I think they used ARPA funds for that, but we'd need to expand our tree fund to do that level of planting.
A couple of comments before I ask Ron for his observations. First is, this is a lot of information. I think from my perspective, we have a long agenda for the rest of the morning, and this meeting's being recorded. So what I would like to do personally, and as an individual, not on behalf of the board, is give you my personal observations and comments, and have you continue to work on this issue. Ron, how do you think you want to proceed?
No, I like what everyone is suggesting, what the committee is suggesting. I think it's a great idea. And I want to thank you for noticing New Bedford, because I was part of that project in a prior life. And take great pride in it.
Good for you. Congratulations. It's really turning out well.
Yeah, it was an effort. I think you're walking down the right road. The suggestions, some of your suggestions about, providing a trigger for the tree warding, and, creating a fund to plant trees and being proactive about it. My only concerns are that trees on private property, people are going to get sensitive to others telling them what they can and can't do with their own properties. And I think most people understand that, but maybe some of those things can be worked out. Again, it takes a long time to grow a tree. Doesn't take long to take it down. So it should be given careful thought and careful consideration. Again, involving planning into this, where developers come in and they want to clear cut, because like you said, they want a clear palette. I think that's a great idea. You can design utilities and roads to save existing trees, and it can and should be considered. Putting that in writing, I think, is a great idea. And it gives everyone a little pause to say, let's look at this a little bit more carefully and do it the right way. Mr. Chairman, those are my comments. I'm not quite sure you're going to get everything you're going to ask for, but I think it's a great step, and I think it's a great cause.
Thank you, Ron.
I want to preface my comments by support. But this is going to be a contentious process. And I would like to have you take my comments as being constructive criticism that I think if you're able to address them, you'll get further. So I'm going to run through your written comments, which were submitted as part of the agenda materials. First, this town has an issue in how, and this is actually a function of state law, how it handles environmental issues through the zoning and land use permitting process. It's not particularly predictable. I don't think it's nearly detailed enough. And so in some regards, what you're doing is trying to address something that is a zoning and planning problem, not necessarily a tree warden problem. And so I suggest you look at this issue among the tree warden, the building official, and planning as something that needs to bring the three together. And I would caution you to be aware that it's a bad idea to split authority and responsibility generally. Right, so keep an eye on that. Having said that, I think the inventory of existing trees for projects is a good idea, and I think the town would be well advised to adopt standard mitigation for new construction. That is, that the mitigation be a standard feature, something that is part of the development of any project, so there's certainty for the applicants. The issue of the scope of control here, I think is going to be problematic. For example, do you have any idea of how many properties and how many trees would be affected by some of your proposals?
Tim, can I ask you off the top of your head how many miles of road we have for Chapter 90 funds?
Well, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Tim can provide that
It's
information.
most of the, it's a lot of the town. I get that.
Yes, and so you're gonna be asked,
Yeah.
I'm sure. How to value the age and condition of the trees is an issue. I'm not sure how you want to try and make a recommendation there. And there was an article, I can't remember where I saw it. It was yesterday or the day before, about the risk to New England trees from a substantial hurricane.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as part of your suggestions, I think it would be good to have a conversation internally about what happens if the 1938 hurricane comes through, or Hurricane Carol, and there is substantial damage, because if you hadn't thought that out, that's going to be quite something to deal with, given a bylaw. In other words, if there's extensive damage, who's responsible for replacing trees? And if you don't word the bylaw properly, I think there's going to be difficulty with the public. When you talk about protected trees and a minimum tree size that's protected of under 6 inches, I think if you're not careful, that's going to cause people to look at their trees and say, well, I don't want this tree to fall under the regulations, it's now 5.5 inches, I'm gonna cut it. It's not gonna happen often, but sometimes that happens depending on how regulations are written.
Too smart by half, right?
Yeah, well, and there's also an issue with, back to the planning issue, planning problems. You can have anything you want in the, in the zoning and building process, but it's my impression that once somebody doesn't like the limitations of the zoning ordinance, they go to the zoning board of appeals. And
Right.
it's sort of jump ball. So you need to deal with that as a potential problem. You've got in here, it says draft a tree bylaw in broad language with authority to adopt regulations that provide more specific guidance. Who would adopt those regulations and what would be the process? And finally, this is going to cost money to administer. The town has a severe budget crisis now, and I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just simply pointing it out. This would be, from the standpoint of a regulatory agency, if you establish more responsibilities, it amounts to an unfunded mandate. And this is something that public agencies, particularly the little government gorillas, are very sensitive to, because this is the kind of stuff that the big government gorillas put on them. And if I may use a term from our friends down in New Jersey, the attitude is deal with it. And I know for a fact now that the Public Works Department has more than enough to do. And so this is going to be a very sensitive issue, the funding piece of it. Also, we're going to come to a discussion later in our agenda about the about proposed changes to the town charter. And that's raised an issue that's kind of a research item. And I don't expect you folks to do it, but maybe it's something you could ask town council to do. A number of decades ago, the responsibilities of tree warden, water and sewer commission, and highway commission were consolidated into the Board of Public Works. There's been no history that I've been able to find what the organic responsibilities of those three combined entities were originally. Where did they come from? Explicitly in this town, how are they adopted and applied? And it seems to me that at this point, with respect to trees, that would probably be a good thing to look up and find. Again, that's sounds like to me a significant research project for a lawyer. So it's not something I expect you to do, but in the context of the proposed changes to the town charter, I think it's useful. You also might want to look at the town charter and think about how what you're proposing might or might not be included in the town charter itself. All right, those are my comments. Again, I don't expect answers today. The board meets once a month. If you want to continue the conversation, unfortunately, we're a small board and we can't easily, or actually, we can't form subcommittees. We could have one individual interact, but that would always have to be brought back to the board. So with that, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate, again, I appreciate what you're doing. I think the preservation of trees in this town, I feel a little bit kind of like the preservation of stone walls.
Exactly.
So, and again, I am disappointed with the level of protection that's afforded during the basic planning and zoning process, but that's a different set of questions.
We really appreciate your careful review, Rob and Ron. a lot of the issues you raised, Rob, are very much constructive criticism, some of which we've already considered ourselves and have a response to. Others, like the charter, are way out of our scope. But I think we can make some, if you want to drill down at a deeper detail level at a future meeting, I would be happy to be on the agenda if Tim would like to give us, if you'd like to deal with some like focused issues where you have a deep discussion, rather than the entire bylaw, however you want to handle it. It's very important that the Board of Public Works be supportive of any tree bylaw that the Dartmouth Tree Committee come forward with. And wouldn't it even be wonderful if the Public Works Board actually co-sponsored it? So we very much would like your support and your guidance on doing this. Happy to come back to every meeting you want us, and don't want to take up your time. So if you want to give us specific questions to address, we can do that.
Well,
However you'd like to proceed.
I think I've got three. One is long-term funding and staffing. What is it? How's it going to be handled? The second is coordination and among the town departments. And the third is how do the regulations, how does the new bylaw get implemented in detail? So I think a conversation among planning, the building inspector, probably somebody from the ZBA, and maybe someone from this department and your subcommittee would be useful. When and how that happens, I don't know, but these kinds of things are, it seems to me, are better sorted out with all the interests in the room, rather than try and do this, have a meeting with this board and that board and this committee over here. The town has too long, in my opinion, seen its conversation among the various boards fragmented, or at least not as robust as they should be.
I
So
would be happy to coordinate that. Would you recommend that Tim or a representative of your board attend?
we are lacking one of our members. And so in terms of naming someone, I think it'd be useful to have you come back and ask us whom that might be.
Okay, we'll come back to the May meeting. Where, like I said, a lot of the things you talked about are really very useful in writing a functioning bylaw. And we really appreciate the fact that both of you conceptually appreciate what we're trying to do. And we don't think there's any reason why new requirements should become a financial burden to the department. If there is an application, we believe that the application fee should be based on the cost of doing business. And I found that to be a successful model in other towns. And that's the way we would recommend any application fees here. So thanks. We'll continue to badger Jen about being on the next agenda, and I'll bring you more information, especially on those three topics that you mentioned.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the
Andrea.
presentation, and thank you for your interest. Tim, do you have any comments?
Just, you asked how many miles in road. My mute was on. I was muted, but we have just about 200 miles of road in town.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah,
And a lot of
And some
trees.
of us are corner lots.
yeah, and that wasn't including the streets that were accepted this past fall. So it might be probably just over 100, over 200. I mean,
Okay. That's a scary number, but you know, we're talking about public roads. For you, it's normal.
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much for grabbing that. I hate to put you on the spot like that.
no worries. Sorry, my mute was on.
All right, moving on, the next, let's go back. Tim, how long do you think it'll take to discuss the budget and CIP review?
It probably won't be very long. I just wanted to go over the capital item that were basically approved to be on a warrant for this town meeting.
All right, before we move on, do we have any people on the call who are interested either in the Waterways Commission or the Charter Review Committee? All right,
Andrea had her hand up, but yeah, there she is.
okay. Andrea, which are you interested in, Waterways?
Waterways, and Roger was on, but we lost him.
Yes, I know we did. So briefly,
I'm a member of the Waterways Committee.
could you, we're gonna go to item K, committee updates, A, Waterways Commission. Committee updates is a briefing and discussion item. Can you help us understand the scope of any grant applications that you've either recently received or intend to apply for briefly?
I wish Ron were here. I wish Roger were here. Presently, we are working with DPW. There's an MVP grant on the evaluation of critical infrastructure that would be affected by rising sea levels and more increased storms and frequencies. And that review is ongoing with a consultant CEI. They've done they've done the review. They cut the scope to just the southern part of town for some reason, because I thought we were going to do 200 sites and they apparently only did 25, but oh well. They evaluated different culverts. Apparently the sewer pump stations were considered okay, even though they are in flood zones. But they evaluated certain sites, and they evaluated 10 different sites, and we're bringing it down. There's been a meeting that Tim was involved with, that I was involved with, that brought the priority design development to certain areas. And I think Potumska Road was one of them.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
Smith Neck Road was one of them.
and Smith Neck, yes.
All right, so we're generally aware of that. And Tim, can you keep us apprised of that one?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
will be.
Andrea, are there any others that you're aware?
Well, the Waterways Committee is, it's got Dyer's Landing. It's got which is ongoing. It's got Roger Street just got a grant from the Seaport Economic Advisory, and I think stormwater, the runoff coming down the road is probably a big deal as part of that. And I think that the community boating also has an interest going on there with another grant. So I imagine, Tim, once that gets started, it has not started. Once that gets started, it'll be involved. Upon-a-Gansett Park is going for a new grant from community boating, and from community preservation. And I think that's more of that might be a parking circulation kind of issue. Maybe it's stormwater. That's new and hasn't gotten funded yet. But the one I think you want to talk about that I don't know a lot about yet is the 604B Water Quality Assessment Grant. Mass DEP has a grant to do water quality assessment, multi-year project. And Sandy might have been contacted by Ty and Bond through the town administrator's office. We are seeking a grant application to be submitted by May 6th to do what I hope the first phase of is what I spoke to town administrator about was a first phase is just to articulate the water quality problem at a townwide level. To recognize, we recognize that there have been different state and local actions that brought attention to the fact that our rivers and estuaries are impaired with high nitrogen and bacteria, and that the state is looking in other parts on the Cape to really force the implementation of water quality improvements. So the town of Dartmouth, rightfully so, said, let's get started on any kind of understanding of what the problem is, and start to look at both the pollution sources and the potential remediation. And you can bet that any project is going to, implementation is going to be a very big part of that, is going to be your comprehensive wastewater treatment plant. So I think this is an opportunity. I'm not the chairman of the Waterways Committee, I'm just a member, but it's an opportunity for Waterways and DPW to work collaboratively, because our waters are affected by the surface runoff and the groundwater, and your treatment plant is going to be a big solution to the improvement of our water quality, as well as stormwater. Stormwater you already have heavy regulatory requirements to improve our stormwater going into surface waters, and Waterways just wants to be one of your partners in seeking funds for that, because there's been no question at the town level that the improvement of our water quality and improving our, bringing back eelgrass into our estuaries is a high priority for the town. It's been it's an acknowledged goal of the Padenham Harbor Plan, but we're talking about working with all of our estuaries, which Waterways has the ability to do.
Okay, so I got a couple of questions. What's the scope of the 604B water quality assessment? What are the work items?
I had an initial meeting with Chris Vitale and another smart guy in town, Steve Bliven, and who I think you know, Ron. And we talked about that first year phase and articulating the problem. And Chris would like to go after a multi-year phase project, which would get us to sampling and source identification and possible prioritization of remediation sites. He has brought Ty and Bond on, and I understand that by the end of this week, and I know today is Thursday, but it's the beginning of most people's workday, he's bringing them on to articulate what those issues are. So I think in the next week we'll know more, but we don't now.
Tim and Sandy, how much involvement have you had in this?
I've met briefly with Chris and discussed this, and we actually recommended Ty and Bond. Ty and Bond currently works with our MS4 program, and they've already handled a lot of our mapping, including a lot of our sampling in town for source identification. So we continue to work with them. So I think they'd be a good candidate for this as well.
Has there been discussion about if this is going to be a multi-year program, how that then extends into source control and collaboration with other kinds of land use and land use controls? For example, I know the Public Health Board is concerned about other kinds of sources that are throwing out nitrogen into the waterways. Have they been involved in this?
I'm not sure if they've been involved. They weren't in any meetings that I was in, but I have had discussions with the director regarding his concerns.
Yeah, composting in particular.
Yeah.
We raised that issue and we raised the need for sampling to additional sampling to identify the source. We were even so bold as to suggest that the state's TMDL data was so old that it didn't have that the compost wasn't in, the compost operations weren't in place when they did their sampling. So
All right, so
we've identified that early on as a problem.
all right, so and this grant is due May 6th.
Yeah, kind of tomorrow. A week from
And
tomorrow.
had this board not taken it upon themselves to put this on our agenda and invite you to this meeting, we would not have had any information about this as a board. Is that correct? I'm making a point here. And this comes back to the lack of coordination among town interests in something that affects other departments directly. And I think a watershed approach to water quality is the right way to go. And that seems to be where this is headed. But I'm also very concerned that that the water quality measurements in receiving waters not get ahead of source identification in a way that the town loses some of its ability to get ahead of source controls. I think it's really important to try and maintain water quality control at the local level, which is something that has not occurred adequately on the Cape. And the imposition of some of the regulations out there is costing the public a lot of money. And if the local agencies had done a better job getting ahead of the problem, maybe that wouldn't be the case. I don't know. I can't, this is for all of you, this is my crystal ball, a real one. And I can't judge into the future very well with it. For some reason, I guess I don't have the right energy, but I am concerned that a grant application with this kind of import, and as important as it is to the town, has moved through the process without a lot of direct input from the Public Works Department. I think the selection of the contractor is exactly right. The question is, what are they going to do for us and what are they going to do for you guys? But that's basically all I have to say about it. Ron, do you have any comments?
No, I think you've said it all, Mr. Chairman. Town needs to work together. Public Works has a lot of information and background and ability to assist in matters like this. And if they're not kept abreast of the direction of other issues in the town, they just can't be of assistance. It's unfortunate. I think you've said it all.
All right. Any other comments on this item? Andrea, I'm sorry you had to take the brunt of that. But perhaps you and the committee could talk a little bit about how to coordinate a little bit ahead of some of these well-intentioned and fairly well thought out efforts to make sure that all of the interests in the town are part of the process.
I totally appreciate that, Rob. The Waterways Committee, the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee, which I'm also a member of, is very knows that you can only get things done by working collaboratively as volunteer committee members. I think we sought out the communication and appreciated the calls between chairmen. And every opportunity I get, I stress the importance of DPW being where implementation happens. So but I can't direct town employees.
Well, that's true, and that raises the issue of inadequate funding for professional staff in this town, but that's a whole different question. I'd like to, in the future, suggest that when there are major issues of interest to both committees and commissions and boards, that we have joint meetings.
Oh,
As
great.
long as those meetings are well focused, I don't think there'd be a waste of time.
Okay, I'll let Roger know. If you want, I can send that direction to him, or I'm sure he'd like to hear it from you guys as well.
Yeah, and I will reiterate my request for a copy of the scope of this grant be sent to the Public Works Director and circulated to the board, even if it's in draft form.
If I see it before Tim, which I doubt, I'll pass it along.
But when I see it, I'll send it along as well.
Yeah, and having asked several different people for this particular information.
It doesn't
I will-
exist. It doesn't
I will-
exist.
it-
It
Somebody's
hasn't
got to be, if it's due tomorrow, somebody's got to be working on it.
No, it's due May 6th.
I understand that, but somebody's got to be
Maybe it's
working
more.
on it. Somebody
Yeah,
has to
somebody's
have an
working on it, but-
outline. You know, these things don't just manifest out of the air. So no matter how good you are, Andrea, you know what it takes to put together a document going to DEP for money. So somebody's got something that, because this thing's due when? Next week? A week from tomorrow? 10
Week from
days from
Monday.
tomorrow?
Is it a week from Monday?
Yeah. You know,
Personally, I expect that we'll see it toward the 11th hour, and that I might have to take some time over the weekend to give it a review. But I'm a volunteer. I don't think you should ask that of your DPW staff. They should have that first.
yeah, well,
But I do plan personally. I've worked in DEP, both the receiving end of a grant and also the review of those grants. And I do plan to give it as much of a thorough review as I have the opportunity to.
Right. Well, you're welcome to ask for help from others, including me.
Good. But it might be a weekend project, Rob. And that's just the way things are.
I'm retired, working full time and not getting paid for any of it.
Right.
So, and I believe
advantage.
there are others on this call that may be in the same boat. So,
Awesome.
the
It's
only
not
conflict,
Tim, though. It's not Tim and it's not Sandy. They're not supposed to work overtime.
they're full-time professionals. My only conflict would be I evaluate lacrosse referees in the evenings during games. So that would be my only conflict that I'm aware of. All right, if we're done with this item, next item is, let's take, Tim, any comments?
Nope, I'm good.
Ron, any further comments?
No, sir, I'm good.
All right, let's talk a little bit about KB, the Charter Review Committee. In a nutshell, if I understand correctly from the documents I've seen, the Charter Review Committee is proposing a change that would take the Board of Public Works responsibility for appointing a Public Works Director and vest that responsibility with the Select Board, or alternatively, the Town Administrator. Apparently the committee's been working on this and had this proposal under discussion since January. I heard about it and expressed concern as an individual at their last meeting. Rick isn't here, and I'm not sure how far to go with this. Ron, what do you? I don't like the idea, and I don't like the way it's been done. And I'll leave it at that. Do you have any comments?
I'm actually taken aback by the whole idea. You know, I, like you, retired, and I was asked to be on the Board of Public Works. And I said, geez, I've lived in the town for 45 years, and maybe it's time I give back. And I, like you, took it as an affront to, you know, their request to ask me to be involved. If you want to take the authority away from the board, then why have the board?
I think that puts it very succinctly. I think I'm not quite, since Rick is not with us, I hesitate to take any kind of action or make a strong statement to the to that effect to the Charter Commission. But I noticed that the town administrator is leaving, and they have do not have a replacement available, and it seems to me that this is the wrong time to make that kind of a change to the town charter. Our next meeting is in 3 weeks. Ron, are you comfortable bringing this item back and having a discussion with Rick at that time?
Yeah, that's fine with me, Mr. Chairman, you know, and I don't mean to sound harsh, but I just, it seems, you know, for the time that I've been on the board, there's always been a push to not take the board as serious as they should. And I'm disappointed in some of the leadership that's allowed that to happen.
Again,
Okay.
I agree with you.
I guess I'm just not gonna be as diplomatic as you.
Well, I've had a few weeks to kind of, as they say, get over it.
Yeah.
At least the proposal. All right, I have an opportunity to speak to one of the select board members, and I'll definitely pass on our strong concern and objection to this change and our concern about the lack of collaboration among the various town interests. And we'll bring this back at our next meeting. And Tim, perhaps you and I can outline some of the issues that that underlie my concern and Ron's concern about the lack of coordination and lack of follow through with the issues that we raised with town administrator.
Yeah.
And perhaps we can put this on some kind of a positive footing, particularly if there's going to be a change in administration. So, all right. With that, I believe we've gone through the committee updates. Let's go back to old business, budget and CIP review. This is old business A. Tim?
Okay. Share my screen here. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to go through some of the capital items that the Capital Improvement Committee and Planning Committee and the Finance Director and I believe Town Administrator has approved moving forward for Springtown meeting FY25. So we have so the top is Dartmouth Public Schools. We'll scroll down. DPW administration. They approved the Smith Neck Road. The first phase of the design for upgrades of Smith Neck Road to protect the road for future sea level rise and climate change. As you see, the past year has been pretty rough on Smith Neck Road, and other areas in town have been inundated with flooding and tidal surge, and so we're going to look at Smith Neck Road, as well as it's also on the MVP grant list of projects that we're looking to fund as well. So, that would be additional funding. Hopefully we get that grant money as well. And then next is the rate and efficiency study, which is actually the study that we've been working with the Abrahams group, basically focused on the enterprise funded water and sewer divisions and the rates, where the next phase of this project is going to take us into solid waste and recycling review, as well as the rest of the DPW for an efficiency study. So we're looking at funding that, and they approved to fund the rest of that study. Next, DPW highway, it was approved for road maintenance and improvements. We request $1 million annually. Typically in the spring, they don't fund the entire request of $1 million. Last year they didn't fund any. I think the year before they funded about $400,000 in the spring, and then we got the rest in the fall. So they're looking at funding $200,000 in the spring, and hopefully we can get the rest of the $800,000 in the fall. The 34,400 GVW dump truck with a plow and sander and highway for $245,000. The brush chipper for $62,250 for our tree crew, and the F550 4x4 dump truck with a plow replacement for $125,000. That's all in highway. Water enterprise, they improved the treatment plant, clear well, and backwash supply and storage tank design. So, currently we're in phase 1 of that design. The original cost of the design was $288,000, and so we're asking for $200,000 to complete this design through the construction. And also the PFAS evaluation for $50,000. We're working with Weston Sampson for the treatment plant upgrades. So we want to look at a PFAS evaluation and possible design for any mitigation that may be required based on EPA's PFAS MCLs that have been set. Next, the sewer enterprise preliminary treatment SCADA upgrades. We had requested I think 174 or so. At this time they were looking to only expend about 50% of our certified retained earnings, both in water and sewer enterprise. So they approved $50,000 towards SCADA upgrades and $250,000 towards the water pollution control facility upgrade evaluation, which I mentioned earlier. We had estimated the cost of the design, towards $800,000, but we had requested $650,000 in the spring. But they seemed to approve $250,000, which we can look at the consultant to phase that design so we can get started on the evaluation and start moving forward towards the design, and then look for more money in the fall and as well as next spring. And then down the DPW solid waste and enterprise, the dual arm 35 cubic yard recycling truck is incorrect. It's actually a roll-off truck. This was incorrectly placed on the draft warrant, but the correct item is the roll-off container truck that was actually approved last year but didn't make the warrant. This year it was approved, and there was an error on the warrant. So the cost is correct, $286,000. So that has been revised on the warrant with the finance director.
Tim, are there any items that did not make it through this process?
Yeah, there's a number of items that did not make it through the spring, capital, which we look to, move on. So I've already met with a couple of my department heads to prioritize the remaining items, for fall, so we can start moving on them, immediately to get those on the fall warrant.
What kinds of things are we talking about?
So let's see.
For example, additional highway funds?
There's additional funds in admin. There was some contract amendments that we're looking to fund in the future. Highway division, there's definitely a lot more capital planned for both equipment and a lot of roadway improvement capital requests were not funded. In the past, we've gone through like the Bliss Corner Road Improvement Project where we're so any road improvements that include sidewalks and curbing, it really make a huge dent in our road maintenance article or chapter 90. So we ask for additional funding because once we touch the road, we have to bring the sidewalks into AA compliance. So we have a number of those roads worth a couple $1 million that we're proposing to reconstruct in the future. And we're asking that to be funded, that didn't get funded at this point, as well as some stormwater improvements on various roads in town that didn't get funded either. Water enterprise, we have, as we all know, we have a lot of projects on the capital improvement plan, including a water main extension along State Road, the construction of the Clearwell and backwash supply storage, which is hopefully going to get approved by APA, but it's on our capital plan, as well as insertion valve at Florence Corner pump station, skater upgrades as well. So there's a lot of and other vehicles and equipment. Sewer as well, we have a lot of capital planned in sewer. We did get quite a bit of projects approved through APA, so we do have a few projects to work on. It looks like we're actually getting a delivery on hopefully the clamp press rebuilds that were approved by APA for the composting facility. We had a truck delivery today, so but we also have, we need a new grinder for the brush area, that the brush grinder is getting old and we need to replace that, as well as obviously the plant upgrades and the design for that. So
All right, so Tim, we just had a presentation about rates.
yes,
And there was an assumption of the capital facilities that would be funded by various rate increases or through borrowing. And there, you've described a limit imposed by someone in this administrative process to our capital request because of retained earnings.
Yeah.
So my question is, if we increase the rates beyond what we discussed today, that would increase retained earnings and presumably allow us to do some catch up on capital. But if I remember correctly, those charts showed us below that target of 50% for the next several years. Is that correct?
What do you mean 50%?
Well, what's the limit of the retained earnings?
Our goal was 15%.
15%, I'm sorry.
That's right.
So the charts that Abrams showed us had us below 15%, even with rate increases.
Right, but tracking towards that 15%.
But yeah, tracking toward, but on a year-to-year basis for the first few years, we would face limitations on acquiring capital projects because we're below that 15%, and because somewhere in the process somebody says, no, you got to drop projects or purchases off the list because that would put you below 15%. So it seems to me that the discussion that we had with the rates doesn't solve our ability to fund necessary capital improvements here. Am I missing something?
No, you are correct, and that's what that's what borrowing is for. So if you long-term borrowing on some larger projects, it would, you pay that over a longer term, so it doesn't affect the bottom line as much annually.
Yeah, but we haven't seen how that applies to this project list, for example. Is this project list, how does this relate to the evaluation that Abrams did?
So this is all direct out of the retained earnings. This is all directly funded out of retained earnings.
Mm-hmm.
And the finance director, is very he really believes that we should be borrowing not only for the water and sewer division. He's adamant that the town should be borrowing long term for a lot of projects to move forward. And so he wants to have that discussion moving towards fall town meeting, where he thinks he can work into the budget and work out some borrowing for either larger projects or combined multiple projects, which would, I think, once that gets approved, the first payment is delayed over a year, so it gives you time to budget for the next fiscal year.
Who for Public Works, who authorizes borrowing, the board or the select board?
That would be the board. Yeah. That would be
Could you absolutely confirm that, please?
Yeah.
As we go through these discussions?
Yeah.
Because there seems to be some question about the authority of the board, the Public Works Board.
Yeah.
Tim, quick question, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but I thought I saw this number earlier, but I'm not quite clear on it. What is the debt service to Public Works right now? Is there a big debt service number?
Sorry, my computer's a little slow.
I can't read that very well.
Did that come up?
It came up, but it was a little hazy.
It is. Not total, but get the annual. That's old. That's pretty old.
Yeah,
All right, I have a current one. It's gonna be a spreadsheet. Okay, can you see that?
yeah. So there's not a lot of debt service. If I'm reading that correctly.
Is that 118? No, can you expand so we can see the grand total?
Oh, you can't see that?
No, it's it's
There it is. Okay.
I did expand, yeah.
yeah.
So is that 19 million? Is that what I'm saying?
Yes,
I can't see it either.
yes, 19 million,
Okay. And that's out through 2036,
correct. 35.
35.
So that's
okay.
total debt, and the service is what this year? Wait a minute, I'm at 2025. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, and that includes the water meter upgrade, the $2 million upgrade.
So that's the
Actually, I'm
annual.
sorry, this is sewer, the water.
Yeah, this is, yeah. That's the annual payment
Yes,
in
Yep.
debt service going out. Okay.
and I can send you this, Ron, if you'd like a copy of it.
Yeah.
And you want to see water as well?
I mean, no, that's okay. I just wanted to get a feel for, what you budget, and I got woke upstairs, but what you budget annually for just debt service.
Right.
Because I agree with, you're probably better off going long-term, borrowing the money you need, and have a rate in place to pay the debt service. You're gonna end up paying more in the long term, but it's gonna be less on an annual basis, and you can get the things done you
Right.
need to get done.
And I've had this discussion with the finance director, and he agrees with that as well. He's being told that, that his, I guess, his authority or his boss is telling him that they don't want to borrow for not only for this, but for all town projects. And then I've also had this discussion with Matt Abraham of the Abrahams Group, and he agrees again with, borrowing for the long term and then setting a standard rate for the next 5-10 years, moving forward. So the public knows, ahead of time. And
Well,
How do we, Tim, how would you suggest we have a conversation to indicate more clearly the Public Works Board's support for borrowing for some of these larger items?
we can, I can discuss it or with one board member with the finance director, or we can bring the finance director, invite him to our next meeting.
Okay, well, either way, I think somehow the message needs to get through.
Yeah.
But I caution that the work associated with evaluating and expanding our wastewater treatment capabilities needs to be clarified, particularly if we're going to have a discussion about taking on long-term debt.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's gonna, if you can't tell people that we may be spending $50 million on a wastewater treatment plant and we're gonna need to finance that in 5 years or 4 years or whatever, then the discussions you have about long-term financing are not gonna make a lot of sense. And they probably won't want to get into it in any detail.
Mhm.
So, all right. Ron, any other questions?
well,
I
You know,
think,
no, not really. It's just an observation. You know, Public Works is gonna come to a screeching halt if they can't have the equipment and the materials they need to get the job done. You just can't keep saying no to fixing roads and fixing systems.
and I had this discussion with the finance director as well, and I think the selectmen are on board with definitely with the roads part. We just have to get them, on board with all the equipment as well.
Yeah.
Because without the equipment, it's tough to get the work done.
Yeah, no, thank you because I wasn't quite sure what the debt service numbers were.
Absolutely.
Okay. Tim, anything else on this?
Nope, not for now.
All right, moving forward, when do we see proposals for next year's rates? Do we start talking about that at our next meeting?
Yes, yep,
Okay. You might want to alert the select board that we're gonna have those conversations and discuss with them what kind of information they would like to have from us as we go through this process.
Yep.
We've been criticized in the past for not informing them what's going on, so we want to make sure that we're not subject to that criticism again.
right. I agree.
Okay, so at this point, schedule and opportunity to participate in the discussions. And if they have one or two members that want to engage us directly, would you let us know? And we can probably, one of us could participate in more detailed discussions if that's what the select board wants. We have a new chairman to the select board, so it's hard for me to judge,
Right.
exactly what they're going to want out of this.
Correct.
But if you would, please have that conversation.
I will.
Has the select board been appraised of what the Abrahams Group has put together?
At this point, I don't believe so. But once, I think,
I think it'd be smart to get on their agenda and give them the presentation.
we were trying to get, the funding for capital and, what we were looking at for Springtown meeting, so we have more of a definite number. And I think we're pretty close to that now. So my plan was to include a presentation to the select board with the Abrahams Group and Weston and Sampson.
Yeah, I think the sooner the better.
Yeah.
But I caution you again, make sure that you treat the leading edge of this evaluation and replacement or upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant and collection facilities. Make sure that's part of the consideration here. And you may want to make that explicit.
Yeah, and I'll have a follow-up meeting with the Abraham Group in Weston and Sampson, and we'll try to put in kind of an estimate on a borrowing schedule to see how that would affect the rates as well moving
All right.
forward. But we don't want to do that these first few years because that's probably, like you said, 4 or 5 years out. So if we throw that in the 4th year and then put it on a long-term borrowing, we'll see how it affects, the 4th and 5th year of our 5-year outlook.
Right. That's the idea is, show it.
Yep.
Plus
kind of the leading-
design,
Say what?
plus designs.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
It may
That's
be
kinda
4 or
what I
5
was
years
thinking.
out, but you gotta design it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, design, permitting, whatever other costs you can anticipate. I don't think we need to acquire property, right? But,
Not necessarily, no.
yeah. All right. Okay, are we ready to move on?
I am.
Okay, our next item is, new business item C, DPW policy for roof recharge.
Okay, so, the roof recharge system policy is actually part of the aquifer protection bylaw, which is enforced through zoning and was also always enforced through the zoning official. So if a plan is or a project development is submitted and it's in the aquifer protection area, then the zoning enforcement official will require roof leader infiltration, and whether or not that development is over the allowed footprint or impervious cover, new structures in the aquifer protection area require roof leader infiltration. In the past, the building department actually did the inspections, approved the infiltration systems, and completed the inspections of the installation back around 2017-ish. I think the one of the former building commissioners said, we don't really know what we're looking at. I'd rather refer this to the DPW so they have more of a sense of what they're looking at for soils and groundwater table when you're installing an infiltration system. And then formally, any test pits for these would go through the Board of Health. So the Board of Health would be they have a schedule, an appointment for test pits with the Board of Health prior to the design of these systems, and that actually wasn't really happening at that point. It was basically put on a plan, go to the building department, they would approve it, and they would just say, yeah, they put it in the ground. So that's why we kind of took it over, and we've been doing it for years, and now we require test pits, and our staff will go out. The Board of Health is inundated with a lot of other issues and appointments, so they didn't really want to, be forced to also go out and be part of the test pits for any stormwater. So the DPW has taken that, and we've been inspecting them and looking at test pits and the submittals and the plan designs. So recently we received a letter from design engineer Steve Joseph working with a developer where they have a contractor that's working on site for their excavation for foundations and whatnot, and they not licensed as a utility layer in town. So they asked if a licensed septic installer in Dartmouth would also be allowed to install an infiltration chamber or subsurface infiltration system for roof leaders. And it's basically a mini septic system. So we said, yeah, I don't see a problem with that in house. We don't have permitting for licensed septic installers, so we'll work with the with the collector's office when they're pulling the permits over there, and a list of the Board of Health approved installers. So we said we'd allow that. So, and then we didn't have a policy written. We just kind of took this over. So Paul Duart and Sandy put together this policy for roof recharge system inspections. So it lays out what we want to see from new soil evaluations to permits required and design standards and inspections.
So, Ron, do you have any questions?
No, I've read this. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I do too. I have a couple of questions. What is the cost? In other words, this obviously takes staff time. How does the applicant pay for this, and is it adequate?
Typically, a drainage permit is for the inspection is $100. That we approved that at a past board meeting. I don't believe we have set fees yet for the soil evaluation part, for the inspector to go out and do the soil evaluation with the engineer and an excavator and water table. But we definitely have to look at that as well. I know the Board of Health does. they have a permit for that as well. So we'll probably look at creating one in the near future.
All right, so you should bring that back to us.
Yes.
You know, I'm sensitive to the cost of, to the applicants, but on the other hand, we do need to have some kind of, cost recovery here. The
Absolutely.
second question is, if this is approved, what will be the effective date?
I think it would be pretty immediate because it's basically what we've looked for since we took this program over. It's not really a change.
All right, so we
It's
could,
basically a policy of what we've been doing.
yeah,
in
yeah, I
written-
understand.
Written policy, yeah.
So if today's the 25th, we could make this effective May 1st or
Sure.
something like that.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions, Ron?
Nope.
What do you need from us, Tim, specifically?
Just an approval of the policy to be started on May 1st.
All right, Ron, do you
I'd
want
make a motion to approve the Public Works Policy Amendment for licensed utility layers. Oh, no, excuse me, for roof recharge system inspections.
we have a motion by Mr. LaBelle. The chair seconds the motion. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. This has been approved. I apologize. I'm getting tired. It's been a long night.
Shut the alarms off.
I don't know how. Oh, no, it's worse than that. I thought they were off. Anyway, next item is DPW policy amendment for licensed utility layer regulations.
Yeah, so this is also prompted from a letter from engineer Steve Giosa for his client, the local developer, questioning a policy that was put in place in 2017 by the Board of Public Works. The policy basically read that it was added that a license holder representative is required to be on site during any and all work being performed by a subcontractor. So, pretty much, since I've worked for DPW, we haven't allowed subcontractors on utility work. So if a utility layer pulls a permit, they can't subcontract another non-licensed contractor to do that work because we require the liability insurance, workman's comp and everything. So, but brought to our attention that in 2017, the board voted for this to be a policy, and that was included on the application of the regulation section of the application for a utility layer. We believe the intent was for, there are a lot of times as a contractor, you don't have specialty items. Like if you're excavating in the street, you may hire a subcontractor to pave that trench when you're done, or you may hire a company to come in and tap a water main or a sewer main for you so you can extend, so those have always been allowed. But we do want a license holder to be on site at that point. So this is all in section 4 of the application, and we added some wording and looked at some other municipality wording that states that the license shall not be transferable or subcontracted, and then that no connection shall be made or service pipes installed by any contractor individual not so licensed by the Board of Public Works. And then I left the formal policy wording in there for limited subcontractors that might be on a site. I don't know if anybody has any comments on that.
I have no questions. Ron?
No, I'm fine with that. I'll make a motion to approve the DPW policy amendment for licensed utility layer regulations.
Before you go a little further, I just wanted to explain a couple other changes. I'm sorry, I kind of took
No.
took that item out of sequence. So, there was just some language amendments that were cleared up. On the first page, you can see there's an edit, and on the second page, section 7, one of the issues we run into a lot is, if a licensed utility layer has two references from a local municipality, and they don't have 3, they may or may not be approved by the board, even for a probationary period. So some other municipalities state that it's preferable that these references come from other municipalities. So I did add some language, and I just wanted the board to look at it and give me your opinion. Basically, I added preferably from similar, this is section 7 on page 2.
Yep.
I would provide 3 letters of recommendation, preferably from similar sized municipality, utility districts, or utility companies, but I meant, it should say utility management companies within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I see no problem with that. Would we want to add anything that gives the board a little latitude?
As in,
Let's say they only had 2 letters
yes,
of something similar in size and one small.
Yeah.
Would the board have latitude?
yeah, I think with preferably from.
That word would
Yeah.
provide that.
Yeah, and I think, we've had some other references from other, industry, whether it, we've had a housing authority references and other, but they weren't all, sometimes they've been from larger companies or engineering design firms. And those are professional references. They're just not of a municipal or utility base. So I think we need at least 3 minimum references, but we prefer them all from either municipal or utility management companies or districts.
Okay.
But if one of them is not, I think that the board definitely has latitude that way to approve them, where in the past, the way it was worded, there was really no latitude.
And Tim, do you have a preferred effective date here?
For this, moving forward, I mean, I'd like to do it as soon as possible, but should we give them a couple weeks, you think?
So does May 1st work?
I like the 1st. I'd like to see it effective May 1st.
All right. Any other issues you want to raise or any questions?
Yeah, then on page 3, there was just the authorized signature line. It just said authorized signatures before, which added some confusion. So sometimes a developer wouldn't, a company wouldn't add the signatures because they thought maybe it's for the town. So I added utility layer authorized signatures, so they know that it's for their company. So that's for anyone in the company that wants to pull a permit. They need to be authorized on this form so they can actually pull a permit. And then on page 4 of 5, there's just some language and wording in there that was just edited and updated.
All right. Anything else?
And we added about when we implemented the 2-year requirement for any road cut repairs, for complete repairs. We just added that any repairs shall be performed within 30 days of the request. So if there's a failure in a trench, it basically stated that in a reasonable amount of time, but we want those repairs completed, at minimum within 30 days. We'd like them a lot sooner as well.
Is that 30 business days or 30 calendar days?
I'd go with calendar.
All right. Let's add the word calendar then.
We can do that. And other than that, that's basically all the revisions to that permit and policy.
Okay. Can we have another motion, please?
Yeah, I'm just reading this again, but look, that's fine. We used to require them to hold that money for 3 years.
Yeah, we used to require only 1 year. So
Yeah.
in a past board meeting, we bumped it to 2 years.
Yeah, okay, no, I'm fine with it, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to approve the DPW policy amendment for licensed utility layer regulations effective May 1st, 2024.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle, the chair seconds. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
All right,
Chair votes aye. Items approved. Next item is TEC Hawthorne Street Improvements, 24% design.
Okay, so TEC had submitted a proposal in scope for $210,000 to bring up to the 25% design per Mass DOT specifications, including submitting a Mass DOT project intake tool to get the project on the transportation improvement program. We're looking at funding $150,000 from a capital article, and that's existing, it's in place, and then $60,000 would be from the road maintenance fund.
Right, any questions? I have no questions.
did you mean 25% design here?
Yes, the 24% was an error.
Yeah, okay.
It's 25%, yeah.
I read that.
Yeah.
I just-
I
I
know.
Wow,
think they
huh?
meant 25.
You're missing a percent.
The contract itself does say 25% design.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that includes, looking at, multimodal transportation, walkways, bike lanes, complete streets, plus, the reconstruction of the road and the reconstruction of all the sidewalks. So
All right. Do I have a
will make
motion?
a motion to approve the TEC Hawthorne Street improvements at a 25% design.
Mr. LaBelle makes a motion to approve. The chair seconds. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye,
Chair votes aye. Item is approved. Next item on the agenda is Western and Sampson Phase 1, Amendment 1 for a 579 on Westport Road water treatment plant clear well and backwash study. Tim?
So this is phase 1 of the design for the upgrades at the 579 water treatment facility. The original estimate for the design was at $288,000. And we had approved at the Board of Public Works meeting to use $50,000 in emergency operation line item out of our operating budget in the water division to start that phase 1 of that project. Well, they're nearing the complete end of those funds, and to move forward with the design, cost estimates, advertising, and bid for the project to move that forward on the ARPA fund list. They were looking at a $40,000 amendment to this contract, to this phase 1. I did present to the select board a couple weeks ago and requested an additional $50,000 towards this project to keep this moving. And they approved it for funding out of the ARPA revenue replacement contingency that they had set.
All right. Board members, any questions? I will enter, if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion approving Weston and Sampson 579 Old Westport Road, water treatment plant, Clear Road, backwash, supply storage tank and pump station phase 1, amendment 1 for $90,000.
Mr. LaBelle has made a motion to approve. Chair seconds. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Item is approved. Next item is Weston and Sampson Engineering Services Agreement, water meter system upgrade. Mr. Barber?
Okay, so also Weston and Sampson Engineering Services agreement for amendment for $46,000. The original agreement was scheduled to be completed at the end of 2023, along with the installation of all the cellular endpoints. This project has been delayed by, various reasons. And since both the town and the installer, Bay States Wind Supply, accepts responsibility on parts of delays, both in the beginning of the project and then through the installation process, rather than the town fund the entire amendment, we brought it back to the design engineer and the contractor, and the contractor agreed to initiate a change order for 50% of that amendment cost. So and it should be, I think it was a late submittal in your package. It might have been on email. It was a $23,000 change order to the contract cost in our favor, $23,000 back to the town in order for us to fund the full $46,000 for this amendment to take us through July 1st, where the project is now scheduled to be complete.
So in effect, they paid a penalty for the delay.
Yes,
Okay, because that was going to be my question.
yes.
Right? Any other questions on this item?
I also state that, since the engineering contract with the town, the engineers couldn't make that agreement with the contractor. So we made separate agreements with the change order from the contractor to us, and then the full amendment with the engineering company with us as well. So,
Well, good for you.
thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Weston and Sampson, excuse me. Yeah, Weston and Sampson Engineering Service Agreement for the water meter system upgrade for $46,000.
Mr. LaBelle has made a motion to approve. The chair will second. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle votes approval. Chair votes approval. Item is approved. Next item is tie and bond MS4 permit year 6 professional engineering studies proposal.
And you may have recall recently in this meeting, we discussed tie and bond and the MS4 permit. So tie and bond has been, maintaining our reporting on our MS4 permit. This is for the year 6 going forward for their professional engineering services for $43,800. This contract agreement with tie and bond will allow them to continue sampling, mapping, complete BMP inspections, SWIP inspections, and report to the state for our MS4 permit. The funding for this is through the Department of Services and Infrastructure Highway Operating Budget. There's a line item for Federal Stormwater Monitoring Program line, but that line item is valued at $65,000. So.
All right. Any questions from the board?
Nope.
All right, so just in passing, this is exactly the kind of project that ought to be collaborated with this grant that the Waterways Commission is applying for.
And that's why I recommended tie and bond to that, yes.
Yeah, I agree, and that's exactly the right thing to do, but this is why the Waterways Commission needs to come in and talk to us, because
Absolutely. I
there
agree.
may very well be some very strong cooperation that could be done that would leverage the work that Ty and Bond's going to be doing, and make the whole project higher value to the town.
Yes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the Ty and Bond MS4 permit year 6 professional engineering service proposal for a value of $43,800.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. LaBelle. The chair will second. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle votes approval. Chair approves, votes approval. The item's been approved. Next item is CDM WPC Plant Aeration System Improvements Amendment.
Yeah, so this is the current contract we have with CDM for the aeration system improvements. Moving forward, we're about approximately at 38% design right now. And CDM requested an amendment of $53,500. This project started a while ago, and they're looking at covering some inflation costs, additional sampling costs that we're going to be renting sampling equipment to get these samples completed, and as well as some construction planning costs. The funding is through multiple capital improvement articles. We have 2 for design and construction, and actually we have 2 for design and construction management and 1 for construction as well.
All right. Any questions, board members?
And this was just, why the extra sampling, Tim?
Towards the design of the aeration upgrades, and they required a number of samples.
Okay.
All right, I will entertain a motion for approval.
And
Mo-
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that, we were trying to work with laboratories that just weren't taking on this project. So that the engineering consultant decided that rather than keep trying to reach out to the labs that aren't responding, we can rent the equipment and do it in-house.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
I do have a question, Tim. How does this relate to ARPA funds?
It doesn't directly. This is for the interim aeration upgrade.
Okay,
So this is being funded currently through articles, and then we have a construction article for this, which probably at this time isn't going to be high enough. So we'll be looking for more money in the future once we get an estimate from CDM for the entire project.
all right. So for example, this is the kind of project that we would try and fund from ZBA changes that increase the amount of loading to the wastewater treatment plant.
100% correct.
Okay,
Yeah, because this project will allow us for additional loading capacity at the facility as well.
on a temporary basis.
Correct.
All right. I'll entertain
I
it.
said sometime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the CDM water pollution control plant aeration system improvement amendment to the value of $53,500.
Mr. LaBelle moves approval. The chair seconds. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Votes aye. Item has been approved. Next item is Hazen and Sawyer I&I Agreement Amendment number 1. Tim?
So this amendment is for $15,679. We've been working with Hayes and Sawyer this year on an inflow and infiltration project. So they have a number of level sensors, flow meters, and rain gauges out in the system to collect a lot of data for I&I during rainfall events and dry events. In the past, we've done projects where it hasn't rained at all, and we just got some good baseline data. And then this project has been kind of the perfect storm where we've been inundated with rainfall, and we have a lot of good I&I data. But moving forward, we'd like to continue to further isolate the system from the data that we have, using some of the existing sensors and move them to other locations and continue the monitoring, so we can isolate the system a little better and get more data while we still have some decent rainfall coming. So this amendment proposes to move one flow meter and 5 level sensors in the system to continue reading the inflow and infiltration. This would be funded from the I&I balance, which is both from the capital articles as well as when anyone connects to sewer, whether it's a large development or a residential, they pay into the II fund. So there's an II fee that goes into a fund that funds these projects.
All right. Any questions by board members?
No.
Tim, when do you anticipate we would see some results from the isolation and some potential recommendations for physical improvements to the collection system?
I think in the near future, I don't know exactly, but I do have the results, kind of a draft set of results and tabulation from where they are now. And then we look to get more results from this, isolating this. I was planning to share that with you for this meeting and a discussion, but I knew this agenda was pretty large, so I didn't add that. But I can, I think they sent me along the draft presentation, which didn't have all the data, but had a lot of the data if you'd like to look at it. But it'll be, I think probably in the next month and a half, they'll have some more good data to add to that and present on the further monitoring that they're doing.
Have we included any funding or any expenditures in our budget request for responding to this data?
We haven't looked at any capital projects yet, but we do have an II balance that we'll have to look at once we get an estimate from the consultant.
All right, and will we be able to expend resources on developing actual projects for dealing with reducing I&I?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Do they make
Because that-
recommendations, or is that just something that we'd need to look at eventually after review of data?
Yeah, so after reviewing the data, I think they do make amendments, so it's recommendations, but I think we have to move probably forward with another project. They'll have an analysis and then kind of a technical memorandum, I guess.
Yeah.
To move forward.
Conclusion,
Yeah, a conclusion.
I'd love to see the data if any of it's available.
Yeah, I can send you what we have currently. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, if you would, let us kind of think about it. Make sure that all board members get a copy.
Mhm.
And since Rick isn't here today, maybe in the transmittal email, you explain a little bit of where we are with it.
Yeah, and I'd like to have Hayes and Sawyer come in and present to the board once we have
Yeah.
all the data together.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right, with that, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Hazen and Sawyer's I&I Agreement Amendment number 1 at a value of $15,679.
I have a motion from Mr. Lavelle to approve. The chair will second. Mr. Lavelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Item has been approved. We've done the committee, item K, the committee updates. So the last item on the agenda is the director update.
So, I don't have a lot to update, based on, this large, agenda, but Earth Day was April 22nd, and then Arbor Day is Friday, April 26th. So in conjunction with that, we always have, there's a committee that puts together the Green Up Day. So it gives residents and developers or commercial property owners the chance to do their part and kind of pick up litter in town, and the company that makes our bags for refuse collection donates bags every year that residents can pick up and schedule a time for the DPW to pick up what they've collected only in those bags. So that's from 4/20 to 4/28. And people are doing their part to collect roadside trash and other areas, and it's a good thing. And then our trucks will go pick up the trash that they designate a certain location for pickup on a certain day.
So where do people pick these bags up?
Here at the Department of Public Works.
All right, so if I wanted to pick up trash along Ray Peck Road going down to the beach, I could come and get one of those bags.
Yes.
And then what would I do with the bag?
So you set up a location where you'd like them picked up.
Okay.
And they have some locations that are common for different areas of town, but you can
Right.
you can schedule your own as well.
Okay, so when I pick up the bags, I ask, get a location at that time?
Yes.
Okay,
Just to be clear, this is only during these days that Tim's talking about, Earth Day and Arbor Day. It's not just throughout the year.
right.
Okay.
The rest of the time I do it on my own.
Correct.
And what are those dates again?
It's actually started on April 20th and it ends on April 28th. So,
Okay, so
so you have this weekend.
I was gonna say, that's a this weekend issue. All right. Thank you. Anything else, Tim?
And also, in celebration of Earth Day and Arbor Day, the tree committee is working with Eversource on some celebrations and kind of presentations at Potter School and DeMello School, as well as some tree planting, which is funded through Eversource. Unfortunately, I can't make the Potter School one tomorrow, but the also next week there's a presentation at the Southworth Library at 5:30 p.m. and there's also next Friday, May 3rd, the DeMello School planting. They'll do a presentation and plant some plantings of trees at the DeMello School.
Now, are those posted on the town website, those events?
They probably are through the tree committee section. I would check that.
Could
So
you?
I was invited to these events. Unfortunately, I can't make the Friday one, but I'm definitely going to try to make next week's DeMello.
Jen, I know you're busy, but could you just check and make sure these are all on a place on the town website where they're reasonably prominent? I think there's on one of the pages, there's a list of town events.
Yeah, I'm looking now. I don't have the flyers, so if they're not out there, I can try to email someone, but they didn't come through my office. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping someone else posted them, but I'm looking now.
All right, and you might loop back with Andrea and suggest that she, as the tree committee, figure out a way to get this these events on the town website.
I will.
Yeah, that could be something that they get good at. All right. Anything else?
I think that's
Thank you
all
all
set.
for your patience and your perseverance. I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. LaBelle has moved adjournment of our meeting. I will second. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Again, thank you all for hanging in there.